Hello, everyone. I'm back again. This is Marvin Smith. So I want to start a series called the Money Rehab series, and that's going to go into, as I mentioned before, many people from them being a child up to an adult have never been really taught about money. So people spend money based on what they're taught and what they feel. So we're gonna go into just basic things because as I mentioned before, many of us who grew up in a household, our parents never taught us about cash and what is cash, the purpose of cash, and what is credit, and how you can use credit to benefit you as an adult. So there's there are good money habits and there's bad money habits. However, all this started when we was kids because it's what our parents teach us. So our parents are our first teachers. So the reason why I came up with the concept money rehab, if you know, is this rehabilitation for everything, for drugs, alcohol, sex. So a different type of rehabilitation centers, but there's really no rehab for money. Meaning that what? Where can you go to basically check in? I'm not talking about using medication. That's not money rehab. But going someplace where you could go either do a video consultation with a therapist, a video consultation with a mentor, or go away to a getaway weekend where you actually go sit down and be able to discuss and come up with strategies that can fix those bad habits, but yet identify what those habits are first. First, you must identify what the habits are before you can change them. In order to change a bad habit, you have to replace it with something else. So, with money rehab, I want to be talking about, and I want to schedule that event. I have a one for this coming Sunday at 6 p.m. where I'll be talking about money rehab and what is money rehab is actually being able to identify what your habits are, what trigger them from a perspective of making you think. See, a lot of us, what happen on a daily basis, we never sit down to analyze. I'm not talking about criticize yourself, but I'm talking about analyze what your behavior is. Many of you will sit down and criticize yourself. Many of you avoid yourself by not sitting down, taking time for yourself. So what's important is being able to sit down. So I'm going to give you a glimpse of what I'll be talking about. One thing I'll be talking about is credit. What is credit? What defines credit? What you was told about credit and what you feel about credit. And the reason why I start off with that because no matter as long as we're living, we're always going to be borrowing. We're going to borrow something from somewhere. We're going to be borrowing. And I'll let you this example. We borrow air to breathe. We borrow water to bathe and drink. And do whatever we want with water. We cook with water. We use water to cook. So what I'm going into basically is sitting down and talking and allowing you to think. Yes, it is hard out here for a lot of people due to the economic situation. And many people are looking for a solution. But I always say that when you give advice, you have to be mindful of that advice. Sometimes your advice is not, it sounds good, but it's not for that person in that moment. So, what do I mean? You can't walk up to a rich man, a poor man who's homeless, and say, you have to say, I'm rich, I am wealthy. I am rich, I am wealthy. I am prosperous. I'll say it again. When I speak and say things, sometimes when I'm speaking and what I'm saying, it ain't for everybody at that moment. Because what I'm speaking and saying, that doesn't fit that person's narrative and how they feel. They could be in an emergency situation and they need money. And if I don't, the way to solve their problem is to give them the money at the moment. Because what I'm saying might not be for them based on their circumstances. So that's why, to me, when you speak to the masses of the people, I'm just a messenger. But I don't know who's out in the audience at all when you're speaking. Unless there's a break and I go meet and greet. Still, there's going to be a timetable on that. So that's why it's important when you speak to people, be mindful of what you're saying. You can say, to me, I would never say to a group of people, fire your boss. I think that's the most, saying something like that is dangerous because you don't know that person's situation. You don't know what predicament that person is in. Now, this person might go and quit their job and then they fail. Why? Because you told them to fire their boss. Instead of telling them, listen, if you want your own business, this is what you need to do. You need to have an exit strategy, meaning how are you going to exit from your job to your business? And then you're going to go through scenarios. Because a lot of times people don't think out things, they don't think things through. They operate off their emotions. To me, a lot of people operate off of hope versus putting in the work. They hope this happens, hope that happens, hope this happens, hope that happens. And they say, well, let God take the will. Without the understand that it said that what? Faith without works is what? Dead. You have to put the work in. So you have to have one, the education, the discipline, the direction of how you're going to go. So you have to have education, you have to have discipline. And my three favorite words is you must learn it, live it, and apply it. You must learn it, which is education. You must live what you're learning, and you must apply the education principles. You must apply the knowledge. You must live it, must learn it. You must have to learn it, live it, and apply it. Life is a classroom. We all must pay tuition. You hear me say that so much. That's my coin phrase. So you must invest into personal development. So I'm going to speak on certain things. One of them is credit. I want to be talking about what makes up the FICO score, which is the scoring system. That's one part of it. So I'll give you an example. The FICO system breaks up into the 35, 30, 15, 10, and 10 rule. 35% for payment history, 30% for debt to available credit, and last but not least of that is, of that 30% is your utilization. How do you utilize your credit cards based on your credit card balances? So 35% is your payment history, whether you paying on time or late payments. 30% is debt to available credit. So you take your debt and divide that by your total credit line. So if you have 5 credit cards at $1,000, which is 5,000, you would take your debt, and your balance was for all 5 of them was 3,000 amongst all 5 of them. Take 3,000 divided by 5,000. That's your debt to available credit. Now, 15% represent the history or the length of credit, meaning how long have you had credit. So if your oldest credit card is 10 years, that's considered length. That's considered length and time of credit history. From the first time you opened that account, so if you opened that account 20 years ago and you haven't closed it and it's in good standing, you have 20 years of history on one card. Then we have 10%, which is new credit, or when you apply for credit. And when you apply for credit, also there is hard inquiries. That represents how many times have you applied for credit. And the last 10%, but last but not least, is called mixed credit. What is mixed credit? You have revolving credit, which is all your credit cards, revolving credit. You have installment credit, which are your mortgage and your car loans. Or you might have many other type of loans. For example, you might have a equipment loan. That's an installment loan. You might have a term loan. Term can be what it means, a 1-year term to a 5-year term. That's an installment loan. Now, so I say revolving credit, which are your credit cards, because the balance is always revolving. It goes up and down. So if your credit limit is 1,000 and you spend 100, it's revolving from 100 minus that 1,000. It's revolving to available credit of $900, which you owe 100. That's called revolving. It's revolving. It will change over time. Right. Then you have mixed credit, which are installments, like a mortgage, car payments, term loans, equipment financing. The third part of it is charge cards. What's a charge card? A charge card and a credit card is two different things. Whatever you charge, you must pay back in full. Those are what are called American Express cards. American Express is a charge card. It also has another division of credit cards. But if you have an American Express, that's going to be your charge card. Last but not least is called service credit. What is service credit? If you pay electric bill, when your provider gives you service and bills you in 30 days, that's called service credit. What else is service credit? If you pay gas, if you have a home where it uses gas and you pay a gas bill, that's your provider extending you the courtesy of buying gas, but yet sending you an invoice or a bill and you have 30 days to pay it. If you have a cell phone, whether it's from T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, that's considered service credit. They provide the service, then in 30 days, they will send you a bill and will tell you your due date. You have 30 days to pay it. What's another service credit? Let's say you own a business and you have an account with Staples, where you order supplies online, and then they ship it to you. Then 29 days later, which is going to be 30 days, they will send you an invoice letting you know how much you have to pay. Let's say you have an Amazon business account. and you got approved by being built on account. What does that mean? You're able to order supplies from Amazon, and then you have 30 days to pay it to Amazon. That's what it means to be billed on account. So those are called service credits. So let's go back over again. The 35, 30, 15, 10, and 10 rule. 35% represent payment history, on-time payment, late payments. 30% represent the utilization. It also means debt to available credit. I gave you the formula for that. 15% represent the length of your credit history or the length of your credit card accounts. How long have you had these credit cards? 10% represent new credit or how many times you apply for credit. Last but not least, it's called mixed credit. You have revolving credit, which is your regular credit cards. You have installment loans. A lot of you have a mortgage. A lot of you have a car payment. Those are called installment loans. If you're in a business, you have equipment financing. That's an installment loan. If you have a term loan from the bank or credit union, and you have a term loan, which is a 1 year, you have 1 year to pay back $5,000. You pay that back on a monthly basis. That's an installment loan. Third is charge cards. You have an American Express card, and a lot of you have that. That's a charge card. Meaning that whatever you charge in the month of November, you must pay it back in full. And normally, Amex statement goes out on the 9th of every month, which is 30 days. Last but not least, you have service credits come from what? A vendor or a supplier. And I gave you a few. If you have an electric bill, your provider that provides you electricity is going to send you out a bill on a monthly basis. Gas, you get a gas bill. You get a water bill. You get a cell phone bill. If you have a monthly subscription from Netflix or Hulu, these are called service credits. So these are the things that I'm going to be going into. And I just gave you one of the fundamentals, which is called, I gave you the FICO score. A lot of you heard of FICO, so I gave you the score part. And you find this on your credit report, and you find this through Credit Karma, NerdWallet, CreditWise. And if you go through Credit Karma gives you your score from Equifax and TransUnion. There are three major credit bureaus, which we call consumer reporting agencies. It's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Now, those are not the only reporting agencies. Now, the ones that are under Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, these are the ones that give over their information to these three. One of them is called LexisNexis. The other one is called Innovis. The other one is called Credit Safe. Small Business Financial Lenders. Dun & Bradstreet. Now, Dun & Bradstreet is for business. Small Business Financial Lenders is for business. There's also reporting agencies for employment, reporting agencies for housing, reporting agencies for medical, reporting agencies for insurance. So I'm going to give you an example. There's also reporting agencies for utility companies. Now, when you go, let's say you go get an apartment or you get a house, but you want to turn on the electricity. However, you're unable to turn on the electricity because a couple of factors. One, as a kid, maybe your parent put the electricity bill in your name, yet they default But yet this balance, outstanding balance, is in your name. So now when you go get an apartment or a house and you want to turn on the electricity, but yet live in the same state where you grew up at, let's use Philadelphia for example, Pico. And you want to go, you go to Pico, you say, Pico, I need you to turn on, I'm moving on this date, I need service provided on this date. They said, well, you know what, Mr. Smith, based on our records, we show that you have a balance. So the utility company is going to do two things. They are going to deny you of service, or most likely what they're going to do is you're going to have to put down what they call a security deposit. That security deposit is there if you default on your utility bill. So Pico might say, Marvin, you need to put down, let's say I owe them $200. They might say, Marvin, you need to put down $500 in order for us to provide service to you. The $500, if you pay your bills on time, right, then we will give you back the $300. Remember, I owe $200. So if I give them $500, they're going to subtract what I owe them, and my security deposit mainly going to be $300. Now, if I pay my bills on time and I decide to move to another state where there is no Pico provider for electricity, yet there's another company called ABC, now I'll be able to get what? Number one, now I develop what? If they were to pull a utility reporting agency, they would see that what? I made my on-time payments monthly. Now, Pico are going to give me back my security deposit as long as I don't have no outstanding balance or I have not default on my bill. Then I will get my security deposit back. So these are things that I'll be talking about. Just like a lot of you go to the hospital, especially the city hospitals throughout the urban community, the ghettos or the urban communities. We have a lot of community hospitals, which is open to the public. And you go to the emergency room. And back in the day, you go to the emergency room, you give them a fake name, right? Because they can't refuse you at all. The city hospitals, which are the community hospitals, cannot refuse you for the treatment. So where I grew up at, it was called St. John's Hospital, which is right there on Albany and Atlantic Avenue. Then we had St. Mary's Hospital that was like around Rochester and Buffalo. So those are, and I mentioned I grew up in Albany Project, so the nearest hospital was St. John's Hospital. But that's a community hospital. They cannot refuse to treat you. So let's suppose you go to St. John's Hospital and you go to the emergency room. And we know the emergency room is not cheap. And now there's a private ambulance. So now the ambulance will charge you. So now you go there, but they can't refuse you. They have to treat you because it's a community hospital open to the community. Now, private hospital is different. They don't operate under the same rules as a community hospital. So you go to St. John's, and say you give your real name, hypothetically. But now your insurance don't cover everything. They cover, let's say they only cover 20%, but yet you have to pay a deductible for the ER. Right? So say your deductible is $1,000. If your bill is $800, you owe that money. But if your bill exceeds $1,000, the first $1,000 is on you to pay. And then the insurance company might cover still 80-20. They cover 80, you gotta pick up the 20%. So it'll be 20% of 3,000. 3,000 times 20%, right? Is roughly like around 600. Let's calculate that. 3,000 times 20% is around $600. So that's why it's important you don't think about these things. But they say what's done in the dark should be brought to the light. Now you become an adult, and what happened is what you've done in your youth now catches up to you. So that's why it's important to understand how credit works. Um, is it a business? Yes, it is. Is bad credit a business? Yes, it is. I connect bad credit to what? Bad behavior, which is bad decisions. And out of bad decisions come a lack of knowledge and education. Good credit comes out of good habits. You make good decisions. And that means you have education and knowledge of how credit works. So some people call that good debt. Good debt represents good behavior, good decisions. And what is good debt? When you buy assets. Bad debt is when you acquire liability. Liability means what you owe. Right. Good debt is when you acquire assets. What's an asset? When you buy a home and rent it out, and someone else is paying your mortgage. So say your mortgage is $1,500, but you charge $2,500, right? So they paid your mortgage, but now you're bringing an extra $1,000, which is rental income. So your house that you bought is now an asset. Why? Because it's bringing money into you. Now, if you buy a house, yet you don't rent it out, your house is not an asset. Your house is a liability because you have to pay the bank, and no one else is paying your mortgage. Yet the house you buy, you don't own it because why? You have a 30-year mortgage. And there is a lien on your deed. And once that lien is released, once you pay that mortgage in full after 30 years, that lien is removed from your deed, and then the bank will send you a new deed with your name on it. But if you would look at your temporary deed, it'll say your name and the bank. The bank is the lien holder. Why? Because if you have a 30-year mortgage and you only paid off, you're only 10 years in, but you got 20 years left, you don't own your home. Your home has become a liability to you because you are paying, the money's coming out of your pocket going to the bank. So when do your home become an asset? When you buy a property and you are renting that property out to a tenant, and that property is putting money in your pocket. That's called income, or in other words, passive income. It's not earned income. Earned income is when you work at a job. It's not self-employment income. That's when you own the business. Passive income is when money is coming in from what? Investments into real estate, which is the lowest tax rate, around 15%. So I'm going to teach you the definition of assets. Assets is what you own, and asset also brings in money. Liability is what you owe. Liability represents what? Money that you will spend or coming out of your pocket. Liability means money is leaving your pocket. Asset represents money coming into your pocket. So we're going to get into those definitions because I always say this. Wow, I really admire Malcolm X. He was one of my heroes. And I spoke about this on a radio show. Malcolm, when he was in prison, he read the dictionary and he read many other books. So definition of words is a very powerful thing. Many of you out there, you don't read. You start reading after you left school. A lot of you haven't picked up a book since a book picked you up. When the last time you read a book, a newspaper article? I'm not talking about reading the horoscopes or reading what's on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. I'm talking about actually picking up a book and reading it from the beginning, right? The index. Then you got the chapters, and then Against the glossary, you read that book from cover to cover. How many of you do that? How many of you have subscriptions to audio book? Where now the books are being read to you, but you're practicing listening. And the reason a lot of people have audio books is nothing. They can go to bed. Some people go to bed, they put an audio book on something spiritual, the laws of attraction, or there's something that's going to inspire them, and they put their AirPods and doze off to sleep. Or an audio book because, like myself, I'm a diabetic. I used to read a lot of paperback books, but my eyes sometimes, so I'll get an audio book. So that's gonna be the end of this discussion. For you, for those of you out there, I want to say this to you. A lot of you have to cut your grass. A lot of you have to clean out your closet. And that's symbolic. You're going to have to let go of things that has no value or no meaning in your life. You're going to have to unattach yourself to those very things that are keeping you down, not allowing you to move forward, not allowing you to be your best self. And you can't blame nobody but you. So many of you out there, you need to clean out your closet and make room for something brand new to come in your life. But as long as your closet is filled with those old things in there, you're not making room for new things to come in your life. And that first closet is your mind. That's the main closet, a renewing of the mind. Because your mind is like a house. It has many different rooms. So you need to go clear out some of those rooms, which is starting with your mind. Once you start there, then the physical part is that's just symbolic. So I wish everyone health, happiness, prosperity, success, abundance, prosperity, success, abundance, money, and above all, everything that you desire. Thank you and have a good night.